Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you guys know about an opportunity to learn some of the most important skills in life, if not the most important skills. And those are the skills of learning and doing so rapidly, effectively, and easily. You see, guys, I'm putting on a completely free 60-minute webinar that you guys can check out, where I will be going into my absolute best memory tips, learning tips, and speed reading tips so that you can immediately begin applying them and accelerating your learning of anything and everything. All you need to do to claim your spot in this free webinar is visit jle.vi/webinar. We have showings at many different times throughout the days for every time zone, but you have to log in and claim your spot. So that's jle.vi/webinar, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys achieve. This episode is brought to you by Organifi. You guys, one of the only things that every nutritional expert that we've had on the show seems to actually agree on is that we all need to eat more vegetables, eat more greens, eat organic, cut out all the processed junk. Well, who has the time, right? Who has the time to go out, do the shopping, make the salads, make the juices, make the smoothies? And that's what I love so much about Organifi. Their product is an all-organic green juice. It has all of the nutrients that you need. It tastes absolutely amazing, and it's made by wonderful people who I consider to be personal friends. And as listeners of this show, you guys can actually save 20% on your first order. And all you have to do is go to Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com and use the coupon code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. Greetings, super friends, and welcome to this week's episode of the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we dive into a very interesting topic that has come up time and time again, and that is morning routines. My guest today is Benjamin Spall. He is the co-author of My Morning Routine, How Successful People Start Every Day Inspired. He's also the founding editor of the website, mymorningroutine.com, and he writes at benjaminspall.com. Now, Benjamin and his partner, co-author, Michael Zander, have written an incredible new book published by Penguin about morning routines, where they interviewed hundreds of people, such as leading entrepreneurs, thought leaders, Navy SEALs, and beyond, to understand what they do in the morning to make themselves more successful throughout the day. It's a really, really interesting book. I'm really looking forward to reading it. And as you'll see, I really enjoyed our conversation. It's a far-ranging one, going from breakfast to the best $100 that Benjamin has ever spent and beyond. So I don't need to hope that you enjoy it. I know you will. So without any further ado, my new super friend, Mr. Benjamin Spall. Oh, wait, one more super important thing before we get into the episode. How would you like to hang out with me, Ray Kurzweil, Peter Diamandis, Joe Polish, Sean Stevenson, JP Sears, and about 400 of the top caliber entrepreneurs and thought leaders, including about a dozen or more past guests from the show? Well, sounds pretty cool, right? Well, I am hosting a competition from now until the end of August 2018 to become the official brand ambassador for my new venture, Branding You Academy. You see, the winner will not only get tons and tons of exposure and mentorship from me personally, they'll also get a free ticket to attend the invite-only Genius Network annual event and meet 400 of the world's top entrepreneurs. Now, these tickets sell for $10,000 each, and that's if you can get an invite. And of course, the learning and the connections that you will gain once you're in that room can easily amount to $100,000 or more. So to learn about this competition and to read the rules and regulations and find out how you can win, simply visit jle.vi/giveaway before August 31st, 2018. Okay, now on with the episode. Mr. Benjamin Spall, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I am great. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
It's an absolute pleasure. You know, it comes at a really, really good time because as I was telling you before I hit record, I'm just about to fly to the States tomorrow. And every time I fly to the States, I have a golden opportunity to reset my circadian rhythm. And usually that means that I can get a couple weeks of waking up early and getting a good morning routine in before I slip back into being a lazy bum. So I'm really looking forward to our call and learning all about morning routines.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. It's actually surprising. Quite a lot of the people we spoke with told me that as the opposite of what you may think, when they actually travel, they sometimes have a better morning routine, kind of as you just described.
Exactly. I always find that I use a human charger, which I have in my hand right now because I need to charge it before tomorrow. And I am able to kind of work it. I think because we're so diligent when we fly that I'm paying attention to the clock and I'm saying, well, it's 10 o'clock in my destination. I need to go to bed now, and taking the melatonin and stuff like that. But before we dive into that and go on this geeky deep dive that I'm really excited about, tell me a bit about yourself, Benjamin, and how you came to write an entire book just about morning routines.
Yeah, so basically, I've had a website with my now co-author, Michael Zander, for a little over 5.5 years now, and it's called mymorningroutine.com. And we started it out, Michael came to me with this idea of kind of interviewing people about the habits that they do in the morning. And we quickly touched upon the idea that this is effectively morning routines. And back 5.5 years ago, this really wasn't a topic that people were talking about anywhere near as much as they are now. So we kind of got in at the ground floor, as they say. Yeah, in the very beginning, we just put up the website in about 3 weeks. We interviewed a couple of our friends. And over the next 2-3 years, we really just built up the website every single week by interviewing one more person every single week. And approximately 2 years ago, we were approached by Penguin with the idea of kind of turning the website into a book.
Very cool.
Over the last 2 years, that has kind of, been our main focus. We weren't just like bringing interviews from the website into a book. We were interviewing a bunch of different people to actually include just exclusively in the book. So it's been an enormous project, but it's recently released and it's been very rewarding.
Congratulations. I mean, I love how you threw that out there. Like, oh yeah, we were casually approached by one of the largest publishers out there. There are so many people dying to get a book deal with Penguin. So that's really incredible. And I guess a testament to the quality of your work.
We're very lucky. We're not pretending that, that was our idea. We're not pretending that that's something we went after. So as we got the email and we approached all that, we basically kind of grabbed it with both hands. We didn't want to waste the opportunity. We didn't want to do it half-heartedly. We really wanted to go for it.
Yeah, I bet. So why morning routines? I mean, I know one of my favorite thought leaders, Tim Ferriss, has an obsession with morning routines. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the big deal with the morning routine? Why is it not the evening routine or the afternoon routine that's so interesting?
Yeah, so while we do have a chapter on evening routines in the book, the reason we focus on morning routines is because the morning is kind of unique. Unlike the afternoon or the evening, the morning, you're always starting with a blank slate. So we talk a lot about habit stacks in the book, which is partly taken out of idea by Charles Duhigg in his book, The Power of Habit.
Love that book.
It's a great book. Yeah, I was actually reading that just before we started the site. So I definitely credit that book for it even beginning. But yeah, the idea is in the morning, you always have this habit of you wake up. And after waking up, we often go to the bathroom. And then after that, you can kind of just keep stacking these habits one on top of each other. They don't have to take a long time each morning. But when you have that kind of immediate go, of the morning of waking up, it's much easier to stick to a morning routine as it is to stick to a afternoon or evening routine, for example.
I like that. And to give people kind of the benefit of the book without reading it, Duhigg argues that this is where, the memory techniques come in, because I read that book a few years ago, that all habits have to be anchored to a cue, then followed with a response, then with a reward. And to rephrase what you're saying, waking up every morning, it's something that we can't control. We do, knock on wood, we do every single morning. And it's a very clear cue. And then, because of that, it's a strong cue to anchor to.
That's exactly right. And I find, I'm sure you find as well, even non-morning people, as long as we've got a good night's sleep, and we speak about sleep in the book as well, because without a good night's sleep, kind of your morning routine is gone, But as long as you've got a good night's sleep, many of us will wake up feeling pretty good. We'll feel pretty calm, especially compared to later on in the morning or afternoon, once we're like sifting through emails, for example. So we wake up feeling good. And then from there, it's a great place to just begin your routine, whether it's, want to do a short workout or meditation. It's a great way to actually just start.
I like that a lot. And also, Chris Bailey once told me that, and I haven't read the research myself, but he told me you're 15% less productive if you start your day in a reactive, reaching for the smartphone, checking the email. And so I definitely appreciate the value of having a morning routine and being deliberate about it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't know the exact stats, but anecdotally, that's definitely how I feel. And it's definitely how the vast majority of the people that we interviewed for the book feel.
Wow. Now tell me, Benjamin, about wake up time, because I feel like this is a contentious thing, especially for, folks like myself who have complete control over their schedules. I always say, I worked so many years and I worked so hard to have complete control over my time and my schedule. And I kind of shot myself in the foot because a lot of mornings, I can just roll back and go back to bed. So are you agnostic, or do you have an opinion on the right wake up time and the right time to start your morning routine?
It's kind of interesting because everyone who hears about the book, they kind of assume that we're pushing people to kind of, wake up at 4 a.m. and immediately go for this, 10-mile run followed by a half-hour meditation. But that's really not what we're talking about. And even though we do interview, for example, we interview General Stanley McChrystal, and he gets up at 4 a.m. and does exactly that. But even though we do interview people like that for the book, the vast majority get up quite a bit later. So our actual average wake up time, and we have this as a statistics page in the book, is 6:24 a.m. And that's still pretty early. That's still about an hour earlier than I typically wake up. It's not 4, it's not 5. Even though we don't say this is the best wake up time or anything like that in the book, we generally do suggest that if you want to have more time for a morning routine, that you slowly over the week start getting up just a little bit earlier, just to give yourself that time. But we're not telling people, if you get up at 8 or if you get up at 7, that's completely fine. We're not telling you to get up at 4 or 5.
And I guess the question that immediately follows is there a clear benefit to 6:30 over 7:30, 7:30 over 8:30?
Not especially. I would say that what we noticed is the greatest benefit is just getting enough sleep. And we speak about this a lot in the book. It's so important to actually get 7.5, 8 hours sleep. The average that people need is 7 to 9 hours. And so many people think that means they need 7. They assume that they need the shortest amount of time. But you actually may need 9 hours. And I for sure need 8 hours. If I get less than 8, I'm pretty tired. So that's the most important thing. The most important thing is to go to bed to give yourself enough time to actually get that 7 to 9 hours in.
Right. And another thing that I always find interesting is people assume that 8 hours is better. I don't know if you agree with this, but people assume that 8 hours is better than 7.5, when in fact, I think one of the really important things is to pay attention to your circadian rhythm and wake up at the right point in that rhythm. Because in business school, I realized that I felt better sleeping 6 hours than I did sleeping 6.5. And it was just because I was diving right back into a sleep cycle.
I mean, if you can, for the most part, control how quickly you fall asleep, that's definitely true. I mean, I always aim for about 8 hours just because I know that it's going to take me a little bit of time to fall asleep. So when I aim for 8, I'm really kind of trying to hit 7.5. But yeah, I totally know what you mean. Especially, it's the same with naps. If you aim for a short nap, but you fall asleep faster, for example, and you wake up during the deep sleep stage, that can really mess with you.
Totally. And that's a tough one that I've been struggling with lately. And I think it comes from, having a partner and there being exposed to light and no longer having my ideal sleep conditions, but it takes me way longer to fall asleep than it did a year ago. And so I'm not able to accurately predict actually how much I'm going to be able to sleep, which has been tough to say the least.
Yeah, no, I had a sleep mask for a while now, but I recently had to buy a brand new sleep mask. And of course, it's not the most manly of attire to be wearing, but without it, it's very light. The light starts streaming in at about 5:30 a.m. So without a sleep mask, I'm not getting enough sleep. So, it's worth it.
Right. after we did an episode with Nick the Little Hills, I always say that was the most expensive episode we've ever produced because I went out and I spent thousands of dollars on mattress, thousands of dollars on electric blinds.
Oh, that's funny.
All kinds of lights, gadgets for the TV that make the light. I mean,
Right.
That episode probably cost me $5,000 or $8,000, but well worth it. And my partner and I sleep extremely well. So.
No, totally. Anything you can do to improve the quality of sleep is going to improve your life as a whole, but it's certainly going to improve your morning routine.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we've woken up at whatever time we've woken up. Talk to me about morning routines. I mean, I think if you're in the same position that I'm in, where you've interviewed so many people that you don't even need to do the statistics, that probably some trends jump out at you by themselves. So what are those trends where you're like, geez, this just keeps coming up over and over and over and over again?
Right. Yeah. So the interesting thing, like both the book and the website, they kind of give you a peek into the lives of successful, busy people and make it simple to replicate what they do. So it's not actually just routines in the book, but at the end of each chapter, so we have a chapter on working out, on meditation, on being a parent, for example. At the end of each chapter, we kind of dig into the details about what those people said and what the 300 plus other people we've interviewed said, and kind of give tips for each of those chapters. So on a very general level, I'd say one of the most important things that people can do is to keep your routine short and easy to accomplish, especially in the beginning as you're starting out with a new routine.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, it greatly increases your chance of sticking to it. And the examples we kind of like to use is kind of like what we mentioned with General McChrystal's routine earlier. If you suddenly decide that on Monday you want to get up at 4 a.m., you want to go on a 10-mile run, and then you want to do a half-hour meditation and something else that just takes a long amount of time, you're not going to stick with that. You're likely not even going to stick with that for 2 or 3 days. But if you instead say, okay, I want to get into this slowly, so I'm going to wake up 10 minutes earlier than I usually wake up, and just do a short stretching routine followed by a 2 or 5 minute meditation, you are going to stick with that. It's going to be difficult not to stick with that. And over time, you can increase the length of these things. A 2-minute meditation may seem a little ridiculous, so you may quickly increase that to 5 or 10 minutes. But over time, you'll increase the length of the things you enjoy, and parts you don't enjoy so much, you can drop out of it. But I think that's the only way that you're really going to be able to stick with it and be able to grow it over the long term.
I'm really, really glad you said that, Benjamin, because for me, a lot of times, and people know this if they listen to the show, we interview an ultra marathoner. The first thing I want to know is, where does the discipline come from, right? Because I'm human, right? I'm like painfully
right.
human. And that's the same here. We've had Hal Elrod on the show. We've had Jeff Sanders. We've talked about the 5 a.m. thing. And yet here I am still waking up at 7:30 to 8 o'clock, getting in the good breakfast every single morning, but not getting in the meditation, or a lot of mornings that falls by the wayside. So I wanted to ask you, how do you, and I'm really glad that we both are on the same page with the Charles Duhigg and kind of the neuroscience of the habit, but how do you ensure success? And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like your answer is start very, very small in a way that is easy to succeed.
Yeah. So we kind of think about it as kind of like starting your morning with intention, because you want to know what you're going to get out of the morning and what you're going to get out of the day. And when you start your morning with intention and you have these little things that you're doing, like I said, 2 5-minute meditation, a short stretching routine, it can then be increased into a short running routine or a short gym, workout. But when you start your morning with intention, you can take these wins with you into the rest of the day. So you may want to get up at 5 a.m., but you may want to kind of work up to that. So if you currently get up at 7:30, getting up at 5 a.m. immediately really isn't going to work for you. And it's a great concept. It's a great idea. And it's definitely something to work towards if that's what you want to do. But you really just need to start small, because like you said, you're human, I'm human. We all struggle with these things. And it's difficult to just assume that we're going to immediately be able to change, because we know we won't. And we know that we need these small steps to get there.
Right. All right, at this point, I want to pause and take a moment to thank our sponsor, Four Sigmatic, who is making it easy for everyday people to unlock the incredible health benefits of mushrooms. I originally learned about Four Sigmatic when I met their founder at a conference in 2015, and I have been pretty much obsessed with their products ever since. Personally, I use their reishi mushroom tea most nights for an all-natural sleep aid. I carry their chaga immunity blend anytime I travel, and I've also pretty much switched out my usual coffee or yerba mate for their unbelievably awesome mushroom coffee, either in ground or in instant form. Now, what I love about the mushroom coffee is that it combines chaga for immune support with lion's mane for intense focus. And because of that, I actually find it to be more effective than most nootropics or stimulants, including Ritalin, despite having only 40 milligrams of caffeine. It's honestly insane. If you haven't tried out their products, I strongly recommend you do so. And to encourage you to give them a try, we've actually teamed up with Four Sigmatic to bring you an incredible 15% discount. To take advantage of that, just visit foursigmatic.com/superhuman today. All right, back to the show. Any other ideas, tips, thoughts for adherence?
I mean, one of the most important things is to really not beat yourself up if you miss a day. And we actually have a whole chapter on this in the book because we think it's so important. And even the long time that we've been doing the website, we always ask the question, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's basically what happens if you fail? So what happens if you fail to do a part of your morning routine or even your whole morning routine on one day? And so many of the most successful people we spoke with say that they just let it go. And you don't let it go for, days or weeks in a row. If you just miss one day, or even if you just miss 2 days, just let it go and get back to it the next day or the next day after that. And this is even more important if you're traveling, like you said you will be soon. If you sometimes feel your morning routine falling by the wayside when you're traveling because you're in a hotel or somewhere where you just can't perform certain elements of it, you really need to just think, okay, I'll be home soon. This isn't a big deal. I just need to get back to it tomorrow. And of course, there's a danger here. There's a danger that you may never get back to it. But that's kind of why you have to forgive yourself, because if you just see one missed day as like it's messed up your whole routine, then you really are never going to get back to it.
Right. A lot of people love to cite that kind of Jerry Seinfeld tip where, you take the calendar and you X out and then you just never miss a day.
Right.
You don't want to break your streak. And Jerry Seinfeld hasn't missed a day of writing for like 35 years. But for the rest of us, that's a great way to start an incredible shame spiral. It's like with diet, we've talked to a lot of people like Daniel Thomas Hind about diet and the psychology of eating. And it's like, I already screwed up, so I might as well enjoy it while I can and turn over and sleep till 11 o'clock instead of 10.
That's exactly right. And I really love that Seinfeld example where, every single day he puts a cross on his calendar that he writes a joke or writes some material. And it's a really, really great example. But the thing is, I don't know if he still sticks to that or if he still does that. But if he does one day miss a day, like, he sleeps the whole day or just something happens where he can't do it, he's going to feel terrible afterwards. And there's every chance he'll miss 2, 3, 4 days in a row. That's kind of why we kind of beg the forgiveness element. And we're not saying, do your morning routine 2 days out of the week and forgive the next 5. We're not saying that. We're just saying if you really can't do it, or you just something happens and you can't do it one morning, you have a really early meeting, for example, don't think, okay, I'm screwed. Just think, okay, I'll just do it again tomorrow.
Right. I really like that. I really like that a lot of what you're saying has to do with kind of self-awareness, but also self-compassion.
Right. Yeah, no, self-compassion is very important.
Oh, yeah. You can do more harm with a lot of this than you can good if you're beating yourself up at every possible turn.
Exactly. Yeah.
Talk to me, Benjamin, about content. So we've talked about the how and the why. Tell me about the what. I mean, what are the things that stand out as being more worth your time in the morning and why?
Yeah, so one of the most common threads that came up again and again, which you won't be surprised about, is morning workouts. And the interesting thing that we heard about morning workouts is that they don't always have to happen in the morning to get the full benefit. So many of the people we interviewed, they actually prefer to work out in the afternoon, kind of around lunchtime, or even in the evening. And what we found from our data and what we put together anecdotally is that you should kind of just work out when works for you, and just having a workout at all is where the benefit comes from. Like many of the people we spoke with, actually the mornings is their most productive time of day for writing, for example, or doing any other form of creative work. So even though some of them, they may get up really early and get their workout in first, many of them, they kind of wake up 7, 8, and they want to just get right down to writing. And because of that, they'll then get their workout in, 12, 1 p.m. That was the previous CEO and current chairman of Vanguard. He tells us exactly that. He likes to get up. He likes to kind of be with his thoughts. He likes to go through his email and such, and then he'll get his workout in at lunch. So even though we have kind of a whole chapter on morning workouts, kind of the summary of that chapter is more to the point of having that workout at all is more important than doing it in the morning.
Yeah, that's really interesting because there is research that shows that we're most creative in the morning, but that's only for certain types of work. And so I find that interesting. I do wish that I was the kind of person who woke up and did a workout every single morning. But, as we've said, that's hard to do, especially if your workout partner of choice or life partner of choice is not on board with that.
Right. No, exactly. Like I said, it's all about being giving yourself compassion. And I don't want people who currently, do a great workout in the afternoon to read my book and then think, oh, I need to change everything and move it to the morning. That's not the point at all. We're saying if you already do a workout at some point in the day, you may want to move it into the morning and see if it works for you. But if it doesn't, and if it's currently working well for you, then you've already got it set.
Right. So I want to re-ask the question because I feel like there are some other things that stand out, some really prominent themes. I have a few ideas as to what they might be, but did you find were some of the most worthwhile or some of the other worthwhile things to be doing in the morning?
Mm-hmm. So the next one is morning meditation. And we've discussed this before, the 2 or 5 minute method. Yeah, this can be incredibly short and it can be incredibly long. We have a whole chapter in the book where we speak with a Buddhist priest and she meditates all day long at certain times of the year. And it just came up time and time again, meditation in all these different forms. People describe exactly what they do, whereas some people talk about just being kind of mindful in the moment. I think somebody mentions when they put on their tea kettle to boil, it takes 2 or 3 minutes. And during that time, they just aim to be mindful. And that kind of also bleeds into self-care, which can be anything from just giving yourself some time to read in the morning to taking a shower to kind of just generally feeling good about yourself and your place in the world. And we actually like to think of it, consider your morning routine and how it would look like from an outside observer. And if it appears frantic and confused, you're kind of rushing from one task to the next while spilling coffee all over yourself, this is probably an indication that it's time to make a change. And this change needs to be some level of self-care. And you could definitely argue that meditating and working out is in itself self-care, but you may want to do something else, kind of just give yourself that time to have some calm, a grounded experience in the morning.
Yeah. And, I hear you speak and I'm seeing a lot of myself in that bad example. Right. Waking up frantically before calls. And it wasn't always that way. And you're absolutely right. It does set you down a path of reactivity. Mm-hmm. One of the things I really like, one of the kind of core values of Genius Network, which I joined not too long ago, is to respond, not react, to get yourself into a situation where you're able to calmly respond to your surroundings, not react to them, not be in a reactive state, as they say. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that starts with how do you show up first thing in the morning?
Yeah, and it's incredibly tough. For example, I keep my phone in the kitchen overnight and I keep it on airplane mode. And if possible, I try to not take it off airplane mode until I leave the house or sit down to work. And the reason for that is, I'm sure many people listening have this as well. My co-author, Michael, he actually lives in Germany and I'm on the west coast of the US. So when I wake up at 7 or 7:30, he is in the middle of his workday and he's I have a lot of emails from him, a lot of emails from other people and all these notifications. And I don't want to jump into my workday immediately, So I find that it's better to just, keep that on airplane mode until I'm actually ready to sit down to work and until I can properly respond to these emails without kind of just feeling groggy and why is this happening right now?
Right. I did the exact same thing. And that was one big step is moving the phones out of the bedroom was really helpful. I mean, really, really helpful because at the very least you get those first 5 to 10 minutes, even if you go for the phone.
It benefits both your morning and your evening because, depending on when you take it out, I guess you could take it out right before you go to sleep. But if you take it out of your bedroom, even just an hour before you go to bed, you then, you have your book, you have your partner, but you don't have your phone. And it makes a huge difference to helping you fall asleep. And then as you mentioned in the morning, it's not the first thing you reach for.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we talked about meditation. We talked about morning routines. How does a healthy breakfast fit in? I mean, is it true what they say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody asked me about this the other day, and we collected statistics on what people eat. But somebody asked, do people still eat breakfast? And generally, yes. Like, for the most part, everyone we spoke with does eat breakfast. One example of someone who does not is General McChrystal again. He doesn't eat until dinner time every day. And I asked him, I actually heard him say that on an interview previously. So when I spoke with him, I asked him if that was, if that was true, really the case. And he told me if he starts to feel hungry around lunchtime, he'll have a small snack. He's not like crazy. He won't make him stick to it if he's feeling hungry. But for the most part, he doesn't eat until he eats dinner in the evening. But yeah, in terms of breakfast, pretty much I'd say almost everyone we spoke to do eat breakfast of some kind. Some of them, they may eat it at home or they may go for a run and pick it up there. But it's pretty typical to have breakfast.
Right. And I think that has a lot to do with kind of blood sugar as well and hunger. And I've been experimenting with higher and higher quantities of fat in the morning, specifically MCT, medium chain triglycerides, and that's been really interesting and helpful. Turns out Dave Asprey knows what the hell he's talking about.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely breakfast is a really, really important thing. Though I will say I'm equally effective when I fast. So it's either ketones or high quantities of fat.
No, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I definitely eat breakfast and I definitely need to eat. But I do have this strange thing where if it's coming up to lunchtime and I'm trying to finish an article, I do try to finish it while I'm still hungry because I know that I'm going to be much slower after eating lunch, if you see what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the same way. I'll generally put off lunch to 2 or 3 if I'm in flow state.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what would be the first step, Benjamin, for people who want to, obviously the first step is to read the book, which I plan to do. But what would be the other first step for people who say, you know what, these guys know what they're talking about. I want to implement a morning routine.
Yes, I think the first step, you don't even have to read the book immediately, just to flick through the book and stop if you see an interview that seems interesting to you. But the first step is to kind of think of some ideas that you would actually like to bring into your routine. So that could be working out or meditation, as we previously mentioned. It could be a certain form of self-care. It could be reading. It could be generally, if you want, it could be checking your emails. That's not my idea of what I want to do first thing. But if you get a lot of email throughout the day, you may want to just check in first thing. So get the idea of what you want to do and then consider your current wake up time and see if you can push that back by 5 or 10 minutes for the whole week. And I don't mean every single day, push it more, just like one, say you normally get up at 7, then get up at 6:50 every single day that week. And then if that goes well, you may want to push it back another 10 minutes the next week. And the point we're making is kind of like what I said earlier. We're not trying to make you get up earlier per se. We're just trying to give you that little bit extra time so you can fit stuff into your morning. And of course, if you spend your mornings, watching TV for 2 hours before you leave for work, then you already have that time. That's the first thing I would say. And then once you start to bring these things into your morning routine, definitely, like I mentioned earlier, keep it short and easy to accomplish because you're really going to struggle if you don't. And I would even suggest just bringing in one item at a time or maybe 2 items. So the working out and the meditation, for example, if you want to do both of those things, keep them short and just do those 2 things or one of those things for a week. And then over time, increase how many things you're doing, increase how many habits you're adding to the stack. Don't do everything at once because what's that metaphor about? If you juggle too many balls, you're going to drop them all. It's going to be really tough to keep it up if you're adding too many things at once. So that's the main thing I would say.
Right. Brilliant advice. Benjamin, I know we have a little bit of time left. I want to ask you about some of the other performance hacks or ways that you keep yourself functioning at optimal levels.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the main thing I would say, this is more something I try than like you said yourself earlier, we're all human. I try as much as possible to procrastinate as little as I can, and it is incredibly hard. But I had this great line from the author Ryan Holiday recently, and I can't remember where he said it, but the line was simply that you need to work harder and relax more. And I love that line because he's separating out the two things. He's not saying work moderately hard and procrastinate at the same time and kind of feel stressed out at the end. He's saying, work hard while you're working and then relax hard, I guess, when you're not working. And I love that. And I've known that line for about 4 months now. It's tough to stick to. Like, we love to procrastinate, but certainly writing this book and then promoting it in recent months, it's really stuck with me. So that's one of the things I'm really working on right now.
Love it. Really, really love it. And I love that idea. My last Genius Network meeting, we had a whole spontaneous breakout session with Joe Polish and a bunch of other really top business people. And it was all about free days and the importance of not only taking them, enthusiastically taking them, but also not feeling guilty, because I used to feel guilty around my free days. And then even some of my employees would tell me, you know what, you're really not at the top of your game. Your writing's not as creative, or you're not bringing fresh enough ideas to the table. So I started taking 1 or 2 days off a week. And some of the best ideas that have come into our business recently come from free days. And so now I'm encouraging also our staff members to take the occasional free day and do whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, in the lead up to this book coming out, the book came out a few weeks ago. And in the lead up, I was feeling a little bit hypocritical because I went 14 days in a row working every single day. And I've never really done that before. I just kept hitting it because opportunities kept coming in to help promote the book. And by the end of that time, I was worn out. I was just exhausted mentally. And, I wasn't getting that much sleep either because I was stressing over the book and all these things. And even though we know these things, we know that we have to rest. We know that there's a weekend for a reason, all these different things. Sometimes we really have to take our own advice. And that was definitely an occasion where I just needed to, I needed to sleep. I needed to take time off. I needed to read materials that aren't related to my own work. And I think, as you say, it's just so important to give yourself that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I think every content creator, author struggles with and we can go down this spiral of feeling inauthentic, but it's human. I put out a video on our Facebook page the other day about just the silliness of the fact that I had wanted to memorize the NATO phonetic alphabet and I downloaded it. I left it in my downloads folder for 6 months before I realized holy crap, I literally wrote the book on memorizing. It took me under a minute to memorize it. Oh
my God, that's so funny.
We have a saying in Hebrew, which translates to the shoemaker goes barefoot. Or in German, I understand that they say the baker's children go hungry. And it's exactly that,
Like taking your own advice.
Yeah, you forget that it also applies to you, what you're teaching and writing about. So definitely don't get into a crisis of confidence over that, because I do the exact same thing.
Well, that's good to hear.
Awesome. So Benjamin, I want to ask you some quick rapid fire questions before we let you go. First one being, what are some books that have most impacted your life?
Yeah, so this is tough because I do read a lot of books, but I went through my list just now. And so one of them is kind of a classic nowadays, but Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, yeah.
I first heard of that through Ryan. He's a big believer in Stoicism. He pushes that very hard. Yeah, so Meditations is a great book. Last year, I read that book, When Breath Becomes Air, by Paul Kalanithi, something like that. And that was a great book. He was the neurosurgeon he got cancer, and he wrote about that, and he eventually died, and his wife finished the book. That was amazing. I listened to the audiobook actually, but that was really a great book. And another book, I couldn't think of any one book, so I'd have to say it's the kind of Malcolm Gladwell series, because that is what kind of sparked my interest in writing, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I think I've read most up-to-date stuff, but just in general, his style of writing and how he goes about it. And he's got a great podcast, actually. That kind of sparked my interest in going down this route in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Gladwell as well. And I want to ask you, though, which edition, if you know off the top of your head, which edition of Meditations do you prefer? Because I've picked up a couple of them and really not liked them.
Yeah, I read, this is one Ryan recommends, the Gregory Hayes translation, which I believe is the most recent. But yeah, it's very tough actually on Amazon. You have to make sure you get the right translation. So just search Meditations Gregory Hayes in Amazon or wherever you get books, and you should find it. I think the image is like a raven or a bird on the front, something like that.
Okay, brilliant. Last rapid fire question. Well, yeah, we'll make it the last one. What would you say is the best $100 you've ever spent?
So this is, I guess you may have to spend more than hundreds, but it's anything that plays audiobooks. So it could be a phone, it could be like a very cheap kind of iPod thing. And the reason I say that is because I have started listening to audiobooks probably in the last 2 years to supplement my own, I read books still, but man, audiobooks are just amazing. And actually just being able to, I listen on a faster speed depending on the speed of the author. So between 1.5, sometimes 2 times. And it's just really a great way to listen to a book and to read a book effectively. And yeah, I just go through a lot of audiobooks and yeah, I just love them.
Brilliant. So Benjamin, I want to be respectful of your time. First, I want to thank you very much. But before I get to all of that, I want to ask you our last takeaway question, which is if people take away really just one message from this episode and they carry it with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that message to be?
Yeah, so it would be back to the point about keeping your morning routine very short and easy to accomplish. And I guess you could say that about all routines in your life, your evening routine as well. But yeah, you should experiment and just start out short, because if you try everything at once, it's just not going to work so well.
Brilliant. That was my takeaway as well. So I really, really appreciate that. Benjamin, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I want to congratulate you and wish you good luck on the book launch.
Thank you.
And I really do hope we keep in touch. I really love what you guys are doing.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks very much.
All right, my friend. You take care.
All right, bye.
All right, super friends, that is all we have for you today. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the show, and I hope you learned a ton of actionable information, tips, advice that will help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or drop us a quick little note on the Twitter machine at GoSuperhuman. Also, if you have any ideas for anyone out there who you would love to see on the show, we always love to hear your recommendations. You can submit on our website, or you can just drop us an email and let us know. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.